How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Gray Rush podcast. So today we're going to be talking with Jonathan Lowery, the executive director at East Hamilton Morning Pointe Senior Living Community. It's going to be really awesome. I'm just going to keep it pretty informal, talk a little bit about his background and history, how he got into the industry, some challenges and things he's excited about that are currently happening, and then talk a little bit about what he does to keep his mind mentally sharp and keep his body physically sharp with all the things he's got going on. So I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, the Gray Rush podcast. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the Gray Rush podcast.
Yeah.
As the first guest, it is a great honor to have you here to kind of hear a little bit about your story. I'm going to ask some various questions, this, that, and the other, but keep it pretty informal. And I guess just to start, where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Carolina, around the Asheville area. Then came here for college to Chattanooga and got into senior living, got married, and those two things, jobs and marriage, tend to keep you in a spot. So
Yeah.
been here ever since.
That was, I think, a 15-second rundown of your entire life.
15 seconds or less.
That's beautiful.
I can tell you all about me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So backing up just a little bit before, what did you do? Like, because you were somewhat of an entrepreneur, I remember, in high school and even into college to kind of pay your way through. So what are some of the things you did?
I did anything I thought I could make money on, really.
Yeah.
Just followed the money. I started out doing lawn care.
Mm-hmm.
And so had a old lawn tractor that I had fixed up, and would then mow grass and go door to door and try to get people to let me mow their yard. And then over time, I kept buying and fixing lawn tractors and trying to sell them at a profit while I was using them. And eventually was able to get a full commercial setup.
Okay, nice.
This was about my first year in college. Is finally able to do that because I started this in high school.
Yeah.
And then started using Google Earth to give people quotes and mail it out. And
literally Google Earth, just like
Google
measuring
Earth
out the distance. And
I just look at it on satellite view, and then just send somebody a letter saying, this is what I'll cut your grass for. And, got up to about 30-ish clients, which was about, by myself, as many as I could realistically do in a week.
Yeah. Wow.
And then did that for about 3 years. And then
this was high school.
This was college. I started in high school, but by the time I really got a lot was in college.
Yeah.
And then I would build garden sheds and gazebos and all kinds of other stuff for people.
And just for context, I remember being in the guys' dorm, and like every weekend, I feel like at Friday, would you leave on Friday? You would drive to North Carolina, which is like far away, 3 hours, 4 hours. Cut a bunch of grass.
I would leave Thursday night.
That's what it was.
So I'd bargain with my teachers, like, hey, I'm in business. I was business class.
Yeah,
I was like, hey, I'm trying to do business stuff, and surely this can count. And they were great to work with me on that.
Yeah.
And so I would go Thursday night home, and then work all day Friday and all day Sunday, and then come back. And luckily with school, you maybe had a month to 2 months on each side of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a good 3-month block in the middle. I didn't have to do that, but till first month of the year and the last month of the year, it was very busy.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that was always wild. And not only that, I have these awesome memories of you, Jonathan, doing, planning these crazy trips. I remember one trip you guys planned that sadly I didn't get to go on, but it was to Norway, and you got it down to like what?
I think we spent less than $600 each
way. And this was like a 5-day,
7. I think it was a week.
It was a week. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cost effective.
Yeah. So it's always so cool to kind of hear about the things you were doing. Cause at this point in my life, when I knew you from when we were younger back in high school, and I didn't have much of an ambition, but once we got into college and I kind of witnessed some of the things you were doing with the cutting the grass, with planning these trips, it was inspiring because it was like, oh man, maybe I could plan one of these things and like not go broke for it. But it was always really cool to see the things you were doing entrepreneurially. And then as I started to grow into that space.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Well, that's awesome. So, okay, so that's college. And then you decided at what point, like were you always going to be a business major?
No, I initially was doing pre-law when I went to Southern at first. Sure. So the first, I guess it was first year, really, I was, going more that track of things. And then one of my good friends introduced me to the owner and founder of the company I work for now, and started talking with him and shadowing him, and he set me up with some other people in the industry in the area that worked with him, and got interested in senior living. And so this was the end of my freshman year in college. So this was like 2014.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, internships, volunteer, all kinds of stuff. And by the start of my sophomore year, I had changed my major to healthcare services administration, which is senior living focused.
Yeah.
And then kept working with Morning Pointe, which is the company I'm still with now, and did internships through them, and just kind of learned and grew and did all sorts of jobs to try to learn the company and business industry.
Yeah.
All of that.
So pre-law to senior living is a bit of a jump. Are there any parallels that you kind of noticed that like struck interest, and that's why you decided to kind of move over there? Or was it because like, oh, I met these people and they're really inspiring? And
yeah, I think there's some similarities. I think probably more differences than similarities, but I think one of the biggest things that appealed to me, especially with senior living as assisted living in the private pay space, is there's a pretty big selling aspect to it. Yeah. And like, if I were to be an attorney, a good portion of that job is convincing either other people, a judge or jurors, that my side is correct, and you're kind of selling them on what you think, and what your side is. Or in senior living, you are selling the vision of what their life can be like living at Morning Pointe. And so I think, the oral skills and listening and understanding where people are coming from, and, being able to put that in a package that makes sense to them. Some of that stuff carries over pretty well
for sure
into that, and plenty of other stuff too. But, this particularly, that if you think about it in a sales perspective, that unlike a lot of stuff you're selling the family is going to trust you to take care of probably one of the people and one of the things that are most precious to them in their life. So, I think being able to communicate that is very important, and also would translate from either one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Sales is such a huge thing. When I started in the entrepreneurial journey and the things that I was doing, I was under the impression that like when it comes to sales, like what you said is like convince, that's kind of like the typical, I think, road that I've always taken towards sales, until actually pretty recently, where I've kind of shifted a little bit more towards, which I think fits well in the senior living industry. It's not just convincing someone, but showing them like that this is a solution to your need. And then like just basically laying out the facts to them and letting them decide, because people are much quicker to, let's just say, purchase something when they see, oh, that is actually a solution. So rather showing someone a solution, letting them decide, rather than coming up from like, hey, Jonathan, do you see this blue pen? It's a pretty blue pen. Do you know why it's a pretty blue pen? Because it writes pretty blue ink, or something like that, And so it's like you're trying to sell just like on the push.
Yeah. And the way I see it, we're not really, it's selling, but you are selling because you want to help that person, because you think you can offer them a better life. Yeah. And so it is not like selling a car, and in the sense that, you're just trying to push it and close the deal, that you're trying to listen to the person. And if it's not a good fit, or you feel like you can't take care of that person in the situation you're in, you're probably going to be upfront with that and tell them. That's the end result. Isn't just to get the sale. We use the ability to close and to do all that stuff because we feel like we can help the person, and people often need it to be explained to them plainly, and then kind of have some encouragement to be pushed through at the end. So it's important to be able to close sales and all that, but it starts with having a relationship with that person, knowing that you can help them and make their life better. And so that's kind of what drives it, not the want of money or a client. That stuff kind of, comes with it, but that's not the goal that most people have that are in the business, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the sentiment I've been getting, been talking with more and more people in the industry over the past 5 or 6 months now. Which kind of brings me to another point, or kind of a question to hear your perspective on. So I've talked obviously with like you within Morning Pointe, a very well-established community. There's Dominion, there's Avalon. There's a bunch of these different senior living communities. And talking to them, there's a like this subset of jargon that is understood for kind of the nuance between like assisted living, memory care, whatever. A lot of people off the street who I talk with, and I tell them what I'm doing now, like with Prominent, I say, oh yeah, we are, creating this lead engine and management system for the senior living industry. And they're like, oh, cool. So nursing homes. And it's like, well, no.
Yeah.
And like in the very beginning, I didn't know. So if you could break down for us the differences between like nursing home / senior living community, and then maybe the subsets underneath that, assisted living, respite care. Like it doesn't have to be super detailed, but just like the differences in those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a lot what our sales and marketing is education on these things. So I think first of all, disclaimer would be that it's going to vary by state. So I'll explain how it works in Tennessee, but each state is going to kind of have a different meaning of assisted living, nursing home. It's probably going to correlate somewhat, but it's not always the same because they can be licensed as different things and use different terms. So this would be for Tennessee in specific. So
sorry, just to interrupt really quick, just because I think it would make sense. The assisted living industry or the senior living industry, it seems to be, in terms of like what assisted living means in Tennessee, is a relatively new-ish thing. Is that false?
No, it's been around quite some time. I mean, Morning Pointe started out in Tennessee in the late 90s. So we've been involved here for quite some time. So I wouldn't say it's new by any means. I mean, maybe if you're 80 years old, it might be a new concept to some of our residents that we have, because they've spent most of their life seeing senior living as institutional nursing homes. So in that sense, it could be new, but I guess I'm not even 30 yet, so it doesn't seem new to me.
Yeah, this segmentation, because like the over time culture starts to define things with terms, and then they become like standard. So anyway, back to what you were saying before, the differences.
Yeah, so let's kind of start out at the least acute side of things, which would be independent living. And so independent living would be typically more of a home feel. It's like apartments, essentially. They don't really offer a lot of services. They might, do a couple meals a day, have maintenance, housekeeping. Usually those are a little bit bigger rooms. They have kitchens in them. And so people are expected to have some level of independence. They do offer some services as far as using home health. Maybe they have a provider of choice or something that can come in and be able to help keep people there for a bit longer. But it becomes really hard to keep people there for extended periods of time, because I think a lot of the onus really goes to the families to make sure that the resident is taken care of. And so if they get established there, the family's having to do a lot of stuff to make sure things are done and they're taken care of, because the amount of acuity that independent living can handle is generally quite low.
Right.
So then kind of next, and sitting beside assisted living and independent living, I'd say, is the spectrum of home care. That is not directly senior living, but it's the direct competitor of senior living. Because a lot of people might opt to first try to get some people to come into their homes and assist with care there, so they don't have to leave. And that has obvious advantages to the resident, or the prospective resident at that point, because they don't have to leave their home. But once again, the challenge becomes the loved one, or typically the family, becomes essentially a staffing agency where they're trying to keep people there, and they're trying to do the job that we have 50, 60 people to do and to manage.
Yeah, you get burnout.
The 8-director team that manages all the staff and makes sure things are done, and you have one person that's trying to do that all the time. So it can burn out people, and that's somewhere along those lines is where we often start seeing them getting to us.
Right.
And so in assisted living, we probably cover the most ground between the three main portions of senior care. As far as what we can handle, that we can kind of dip down into independent living. And independent living, kind of using home health sources, can also dip into our general market as well. So there is overlap there at the bottom side of things. So when someone would come to us, we can have them be completely independent. And to me, the goal of assisted living, and this is what I tell people when they're moving in is we want to do the least amount that we can for you to be safe and maintain your independence.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, we want to make sure we are assuring the family that they're going to be taken care of and safe. Because often what you have when someone is getting to the point of looking for assisted living is you might have the prospective resident here, the family over here, and you're talking to them across the table. And on one side, you have the resident who their biggest worry is
independence.
How much independence will I lose for making this decision? So, we can assure them that we're only going to help you with the things you need help with, that you help drive your care.
Right.
And then on the other side, the family, they want to make sure, if I go on vacations or I'm at home sleeping at night, if I'm living my life, then I have kids and a family and other responsibilities, that when they're doing those things, that their loved one is safe and taken care of. So really our goal, in explained simply, is to cater to both of those simultaneously and make sure the person's safe, but also make sure we're respecting their dignity and independence, and helping them be able to have a smooth transition to this portion of life. So assisted living, typically we provide a lot more services than what independent would. We have nurses that work in the building. We have CNAs that are there to take care of the people. Everybody has a care plan, and so we can work off that. Some people may need relatively no help. Some people may need a lot of help. And then utilizing hospice services, in most cases, we can keep people all the way through the end of life. That's not a hard and fast rule. There are, things that we can't do, but most people that would go hospice route and get some assistance from them, between the two of us collaborating, we can keep people all the way through into life, saving them from a move. So then we get to the nursing home portion of the continuum. And that's probably seen a lot of change, even in my career, and how it works and how it's reimbursed. The model has changed there. So I think I did some internships there when I was at Southern, working in nursing homes. And I think the biggest thing that people probably misunderstand about nursing homes is that the biggest reason that they're there today, in most cases, most of the nursing homes, is rehab. That is kind of what they have gone to as their specialty. And I think that is probably because many years, the way the reimbursement model worked, they reimbursed for therapy provided. So you would have the skilled nursing that their biggest moneymaker has been rehab. So they've kind of moved into that being their space more, where assisted living has kind of moved into, this is where people are going to live for, months and years at a time, where, often in nursing home, you're not going to live there for more than 3 months. And there, of course, is other portions of nursing homes that can do like intermediate care.
Sure.
And so that would be somebody that, maybe they get Medicare or Medicaid or whatever the case may be for getting funded. And they might be well beyond, they could have a stroke and be paraplegic and beyond what some assisted living services can offer. And so
it's more acute, it seems.
But their biggest, I'd say their bread and butter right now is rehab. And it's been like that for many years.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
And that opened the door for assisted living to really come in and make a mark too.
Yeah. Yeah. When I think, the biggest differences in my mind between assisted living and nursing home, I think nursing home, 1980s style, single level hospital.
The biggest difference is when you walk in the door.
And then, and when I think of like Morning Pointe or Greenbrier Cove, which really, Greenbrier Cove is more like, in this area, is more of independent living, right?
So Greenbrier Cove, there's a Morning Pointe there. And so they have a pretty good portion of that continuum. They have from housing that's geared to seniors. And they have a independent living. And then they have a assisted living as well. So that's kind of a collaboration between Morning Pointe and some other providers to make that happen. So the assisted living portion, though, is Morning Pointe of Greenbrier Cove.
Okay. Yeah. And so walking to those places, it's like, oh, this is a really nice hotel. And it fits the age demographic that goes in there, like lots of more curves in the wooded furniture, nice curtains, big and plush, which will be really interesting to see, like in the next 40, 50 years, how the designs change for a lot of these communities, because once we approach that area in the next 60 years or whatever, if I'm going to go in place, I assume I will want something that is similar to what I grew up and fashioned my house afterwards, like ultra modern box.
There might not be pineapples on the carpet anymore.
Yeah, no more pineapples on the carpet, no more cherubim painted on the ceiling. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I guess a little bit of my next question. You've been in this industry now. Did you graduate in 2017?
Yes, I did. Yeah, 2017.
Okay, so like whatever, I can count. That's like 6 years, give or take.
Nice.
Yeah. Quick mental math. I mean, that's a good amount of time. Most of our generation, it's like the average tenure at a place is like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So you've gained a lot of experience, and getting a feel for what's happening and what's not happening. What is something that is going on right now in the industry that you are maybe excited or spending a lot of focus on, or something of that nature?
I'm excited that our whole day and weeks are not consumed with COVID and the fallout from the pandemic.
Yeah, that was like half of your experience so far, I guess.
I would make the argument that those should count as 2 years. Each year during COVID should count as 2 for experience.
Yeah. Okay.
That's neither here nor there.
So you're knocking on 9 years then.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
The math works out for 9.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's been the biggest change, is just how do we come through that? And it's left its mark on the industry as far as how we handle various situations. And probably the biggest thing is the way it's changed the staffing model that we have to operate on. And, how do we recruit, retain, train, all those things, that it's really made a lot of changes have to be made in those areas, and for us to adjust with the times. So I think it's exciting though, because during COVID, it was every day was the same day over and over and over. And we were just really trying to
during
make sure,
COVID, you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, we were really trying to make sure the residents were safe and taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had, the concerns with exposures of staff. And so we had staffing challenges then, but the staffing challenges then had no clear long-term solution because we were in the middle of an acute situation.
Yeah.
So now I think that we've come through that. Some of those greater market challenges, they have there's solutions out there to those problems, and I think we're being successful at finding those and shortening the time from when somebody walks in the door to then being very well trained. And some of the things that have happened have pushed us to be better in certain areas, and I think that's been fun to see and learn about as we've gone through.
So it sounds like it's created somewhat of a haste. Haste is probably not a great word. An encouragement to move quicker in terms of training and hiring. Like, I guess what I'm asking is, prior COVID, what did the staffing piece look like broadly? And then during COVID, it's like, obviously people are not working or whatever, and then a challenge. And then to today, what does that compare and contrast really, like some of the details?
Yeah, I would say that in general, before COVID, and remember, I opened Morning Pointe of East Hamilton, which is the first building I ran 6 months before COVID happened. So my pre-COVID experience is limited to more. I was executive director in training, and so had some exposure to that, but actually really having my hands around it and being responsible for it started right before COVID. So I think in general, the biggest thing that changed was what people were expecting as far as pay goes, and people's willingness to transfer jobs has increased since COVID. So we are having to, like I mentioned before, focus on the training piece much more now, and really how do we get the knowledge that we have and the knowledge that those in the workforce or in our workforce already have transferred into the new arrivals to it, because we have more and more people that are getting of that age, and we're going to have workers that are trained and ready and able to take care of them. And a portion of that onus to get them trained is going to be on the provider to how do they do that effectively and get good people that will stick around and get them to a point quickly where they're doing a good job for the residents and have the knowledge they need to be good caregivers.
Yeah. Okay, good deal. Sweet. Yeah, it sounds like you're learning a ton. I know my life changed and everyone's life changed a lot during COVID just for the demands it created on people. And a lot of the, like you were talking about some of the solutions, you said you're getting better at these solutions in terms of like training now versus prior. Do you find that within the training, you're just more detailed and you know exactly what to teach in the moment and it's like less broad? Like what is enabling you now to be more efficient in the training?
I think the biggest portion of it is having advocates on the floor that can take people under their wing and teach them. We've always had leads, but empowering other people that they work with to where everyone is a trainer essentially. And there's the title doesn't necessarily matter when you're trying to get people up to speed. And so you will learn a lot more knowledge from working with others. And if people have a sense of ownership to help the new people get to the point of understanding.
Yeah.
And so getting the tools that your current employees need that are already being successful to then be able to transfer that knowledge to others and then to set that up when you do orientations and all that and kind of set the stage for what they're going to expect and how we're going to go about training and getting them there. But if me or any of the directors are the ones responsible for training and we don't have the buy-in of our other associates, it's very difficult to do things promptly. But when you have buy-in from other people on the floor, that can really help shorten the time. And if you think about it, I know you're the host, but I'm gonna ask you a question.
Oh, please.
When you pick a job or when you go to work, what's one of the biggest things that would control your enjoyment of that job?
Autonomy.
Okay.
For me.
All right. Let's go a little bit deeper than that. What else? So I think everyone probably will have an answer similar to this.
So like what gives me fulfillment? Like when I'm doing a job?
Like what makes you enjoy going to work, or could be the difference between liking your job or not liking the job?
The people I work with.
Yes.
The people that I interact with 100%.
Yeah. That is one of the biggest things is people will put up with a lot more and do a lot more stuff if they enjoy the people that they're working around.
Yeah.
In healthcare, senior living in general, there are unpredictable things. And, some of the things we've had to put up with is COVID and then the challenges that have come with that. And then a changing industry and adjustment of demand and, having to constantly kind of modify some procedures on how we do things.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'm really trying to focus on this year is recognizing our staff that are the high performers and making sure we can show them appreciation, and then having them have a culture of educating those that they work with to then bring the same skills and attitude to the table for the others. And so actually yesterday we had a staff meeting. We gave out awards to 3 associates for 3 different areas. We're going to do this every month.
Oh, nice.
So the 3 that we're doing is accountability, attitude, and culture. So if you think about it like a pyramid, I guess, they build on each other. That you have accountability, which would be people that are coming in and doing their job, doing it well. They're coming to work when they're scheduled. They're doing all of the things. Then you have attitude. They're doing all the same things, except they're coming in. They always have a great attitude. They brighten a room.
Yeah.
And they kind of make others better around them in a more positive workplace environment whenever they're there. And then you have the culture, which is all those same things, except those people are actively maybe telling friends about Morning Pointe and trying to, refer others to come work there. And they're bringing in good new people that don't necessarily haven't maybe worked in senior living before, or they haven't worked at Morning Pointe. And, so they would encourage them to come work there. And then you have people that have encouraged other people to come get a job. So they already have a built-in advocate and a built-in friend and somebody that's very positive and does a great job and sees them as a role model. So kind of having those things in place, recognizing people that do it, and then hopefully through recognition, encouraging others to be able to take up that baton and show that to to other workers as well,
Yeah.
that, and they are the ones that make the biggest difference
Yeah.
in the workplace experience, because they're the ones interacting with each other. And, I can be very kind and understanding and fair and all those things as the leader, but if they're having negative experiences with the people they're working with
Yeah.
the most, that's going to obviously overshadow anything that me or any of the other directors could do.
Yeah. Have you ever had to fire anyone?
Yes. I don't enjoy it.
You don't enjoy it?
I don't think I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah, sure.
So especially, you kind of take it personally that
Hmm.
it's always my goal to anybody I can to get them to be successful. So especially if you're doing that with a director or somebody else, like, it almost feels like a failure to you, because it's my job to have people that are
Yeah.
better than me in positions. And so you never want it to come to that, but you also have to have integrity and fairness, and
Sure.
you can't have people that aren't pulling their
Mhm.
weight. That's not fair to others and can undermine all the other stuff you're trying to do to build positive culture.
Yeah.
So it's necessary
Yes,
at times, but it's never the first option, and not the best one, but it has to be done.
Yeah, for sure. So last couple of questions. I guess the first one is still related to your position as executive director. What is something that you do? It may be habitual, it may be not, that you do on maybe a daily or weekly basis to foster like that culture to like kind of show people. Because for example, I know when I've worked in other jobs in the past, like even if they're my close friend, like the president of a company or whatever, and I'm working under him, and then he says subtle things that like he knows help me feel noticed and like that I am doing kind of a work that he appreciates. So are there things that you kind of intertwine into your working day to kind of foster that culture?
Yeah, I think I first of all, I don't sit well. I
You
don't
don't sit
I
like
don't
in a
sit
chair?
down well. I don't. I have a hard time staying still for long periods of
Oh,
time.
that's great. I've been noticing
So
you sitting perfectly still. I've been
yeah,
over here doing basically
it's
black
only been
flips.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't spend 6 hours in a row at my desk where I have
Yeah.
to get up and walk around, and I don't text people a lot. I would rather, especially in the building, like, I'd rather go walk to their office and talk to them, or just go check on the resident assistants or the nurses. And so I think it's definitely a balance that you want them to know that you're not a robot.
Sure.
But you also have to, you're the supervisor as well, so you can't become best friends with people, but you want to treat them as a person, and be kind, and know what's going on with their life, and make jokes with them, and interact in a light way. But also, I think that everybody knows that as long as they're doing their job, like, it can be a very fun place, and we can do all those things. But if you're not doing your job at the end of the day, you're still going to have to be held accountable for that. And so I think, walking around and then just being understanding when people have problems or things that come up, that, a lot of the workforce right now, they're mostly probably women under 40 years old, I would say, is, a good percentage of the workforce. And so often they feel the responsibility for making sure the kids are taken care of. So, when daycare closed or kids are sick, being flexible with them.
Sure.
And, doing your best to accommodate when the stuff they can't help. So then you have good employees, but you're not suddenly treating them differently when something happens and they have a legitimate reason to not come to work, because you trust the body of work they've built up, and you have enough relationship with them that
Get that rapport.
it's worth, when they're there, the times where they have to handle something personally, because we are a service-based industry. And so you have to have people there, but being flexible with that, and understanding life circumstances, and then also being able to kind of read through and realize when somebody's taking advantage of something versus when someone isn't. And then not just saying a cut and dry, you call out twice, you're going to get written up, and all those things. You kind of have the policy there, but being flexible. Like, I tell everybody, if you call out, if you get your shift covered, I don't count that as a call out at all. Like if you tell me I'll get so-and-so to cover it, or if, there's a way we can make it happen, it's not going to count. And I've heard when we interview people, we usually have one of the leads of whatever position they have, tour them around. And one of the leads, I always hear her tell whoever she's interviewing, they're great to work with. They understand when personal stuff comes up. They definitely don't let you, go on and get away with it. But they also understand that life happens outside of work. And so I think being flexible and understanding when those times come up is very important, and something that I try to do and instill in the other directors.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about if you've worked for a company for 2 years and stuff comes up and you have to call out or something, you wouldn't want me to treat you differently because that happened. That what you have done over the last 2 years should mean something.
Yeah.
And, I should be able to trust that if you could be there, you would be there.
Yeah.
And if it's not habitual, and I think it's just being a good person to the people you work with, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. So kind of wrapping up a little bit, I know just from stories that I've heard from you personally that this job can be stressful. I recall one not too long ago when the call system, when it was supposed to turn to like go to someone else while you were off hours, it somehow all the calls for the building or something were like coming to your phone.
Yeah.
And I remember your phone just ringing off the hook. And I don't know, did that happen through the night?
I think I got it fixed around midnight, but it all went. The call forwarding somehow got to my cell phone, so everything was going through there.
So that's one minor example of like workplace stress, and I'm sure with the amount of people that you can oversee in the building you oversee, like things can get pretty hectic at times. So what is something that you do outside of work to keep yourself mentally sharp and kind of focused, and maybe a de-stressor?
Exercise.
Oh, what kind of exercise, Jonathan?
I know you wanted me to answer this. I mostly cycle, so like road and mountain bike and gravel, anything.
Yeah.
I like going fast, and I like feeling
that you do.
I like feeling fit. So it's a lot of fun. You have the physical side of it, then you also have the mental side of pushing through barriers and learning about it.
Yeah.
And then you have the just, I guess, reflexes side of it, where I feel like it keeps you sharp, just having to adjust to inputs that are coming at you quickly. And so I enjoy it that when you are mountain biking, for example, or bombing down a descent, or you are going to the well on a climb, you don't have the capacity to think about anything else. Even if you wanted to, your sole focus is, how am I going to get through this?
Yeah, your heart reminds you. It's beating through your throat.
So I think it's good to be able to have those things for everybody that can unplug. And it's, any industry. Healthcare is a 24/7, 365 thing. So those in senior living and healthcare in general, I think it's important to have something that you can be able to disconnect. And so my mind is always going. There's other hobbies that I hadn't enjoyed before I really got into this, and I still enjoy it, was fly fishing. I like to fly fish, but I found with doing that, I would still be thinking about work and other stuff because it was not enough inputs coming in to like solely take my focus. Whereas cycling, often, unless you're, noodling around at zone 2 or whatever, a lot of the time you don't have the ability to think about a lot of other stuff, which is a nice to force your mind to disconnect and think about something else.
Yeah. In so many ways, I think exercise helps for any executive, or really not even just someone executive, but the more stress you have, the more of the importance, I think, for having like a routine of some form of exercise, just to, like you're saying, clear the mind. I think of it like, if I'm always sedentary, or like I have these pipes of blood and they're like slowly moving around, but if I don't get that stuff up to a higher speed and a higher pressure every once in a while, it doesn't really clean out the valves. Like you get kind of rusty. So yeah, especially mentally, physically, such a cool thing.
Mentally, you can, when you are able to have your mind sort of cleared for a minute or 3 hours, depending on the situation.
Lead bill 100.
I had no capacity to think about anything. You could have told me anything in the world happened, I could not have cared less.
There's an asteroid just hit LA. That's okay. I'll be there in a minute.
Your house burned down. Oh, all right. Well, I guess I'll deal with that tomorrow once I sleep. But I think it's important to have those mental resets, because then after you exercise and kind of empty the tank, you have the ability to have maybe thoughts that you didn't have before, and for almost like sleep, where your mind can, kind of reorganize and just have it working in the background more than the foreground. And it's kind of like the shower, where you just don't, you don't have any distractions. And a lot of people think, oh, a lot of my best ideas come in the shower. Well, maybe it's because you don't have your phone in the shower, or you don't have any other things to think about, that your mind is kind of cleared and you can think creatively. So I think exercise and is a big contributor to creativity.
Yeah, one little kind of piece of thing I've learned recently, because I went through some crazy life circumstances about a year and some months ago, where I had to go to like a PTSD counselor, and there was this idea of bilateral stimulation. I think it's called like EMDR therapy or something, but basically it's like you're stimulating your body through either sound or visuals or muscular exertion, back and forth, and it allows you to basically open up both sides of the brain. And while you're doing those activities or watching that, whatever, or listening to that sound, it allows you to process in both hemispheres. So I think there's a lot to be said about exercise, with doing things like cycling and running, swimming, whatever. Most physical exercise is some type of bilateral stimulation, unless you're just hobbling them in a circle. But it allows you to process those things. And one thing I've really found with exercise that's been huge for me is it forces you to feel emotions. Like when you, like you say, going to the well, when you're digging deep for something and you're pushing yourself, like everything in your body telling you, no, stop, and then you're just pushing beyond it, almost to the point of tears. Or sometimes, like, it's just been great for me, because it's forced me to feel emotions that I otherwise wouldn't feel, and think about things that I otherwise probably wouldn't think about. Because like you're saying, singular track mindset, whether you're in the shower, whether you're on your bike or whatever. So
and I think it helps you to be able to push through walls, I guess, that, I've been, 4 hours into a 10-hour ride and be like, I don't know if I can
humble brag there.
I don't know if I can go any farther at all right now. And like, I got 6 more hours of this. Like and then if you push through, you kind of know that you can break through that, and then you can feel better again, and you'll feel bad again. And it's just a lot of cycles, but knowing that you have the ability, that when you think you've done all you can, that you have 3 or 4 more gears after that, that you have the ability to push through, and that if you keep pushing, it'll eventually get better until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't, until you completely bonk, you've run out of all carbohydrates and you are dead on the floor. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. Really appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have to have you on again, and all the best.
Sounds good. Good luck with the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much.